the civil rights movement, the very spirit of the civil rights movement. We are pleased to have a guest tonight, Kevin P. Turner, instructor at the University of Alabama at Birmingham and director of the gospel choir there, in addition to two awesome NAACP AXO medalists that will join us later in the broadcast to share some of their art form through spoken word, original spoken word and oratory. Let's jump into the conversation, but remember, we are live tweeting tonight. Make sure you use the hashtag pound sign Sounds of Revolution. Remember, Sounds of Revolution is our hashtag for tonight. Make sure you follow our conversation by following our NAACP Connect Twitter account at NAACP Connect. Kevin, good evening. Welcome. Thank you so much for taking time out of your night to join us. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's jump into it. So Thomas Dorsey, let's start at the beginning, the father of gospel music. Thomas Dorsey that's what he's known for. Let's talk a little bit about Thomas Dorsey and what he meant and how he paved the way and became the legend that he is known today as the father of gospel music.
Awesome. In fact, he coined the term gospel music. It was part of a great revolution. It was called the Great Migration from the South. That's how people like James Cleveland, Sally Martin, Thomas Dorsey, all of them ended up around Chicago because it was getting pretty rough down here in the South. And Georgia Tom, believe it or not, came out of church. His dad was a preacher. His mom was a musician, but he liked what we call worldly music, jazz and blues. So when he moved to Chicago, Illinois, he got great fame doing jazz and blues. But that's how it got started, and that's how he got there. But then something awful happened while he was performing in Chicago. His wife was carrying the baby, and she died during childbirth. And the baby was born, but only lived one day. So he went into seclusion for about 2 or 3 days, and then he came out of seclusion with the song that he penned, "Take My Hand, Precious Lord," and that was the beginning of something that you would hear, believe it or not, if I fast forward after Martin Luther King was assassinated. That's where we would hear Mahalia Jackson, also who migrated from New Orleans to Chicago, would sing it at our greatest civil rights leader at his funeral in Atlanta, Georgia. But then something incredible happened. If you remember the movie with Ray Charles, when he started taking church music and putting
yes.
Sacred lyrics on top. Well, that's what Thomas Dorsey did. And one of his quotes was, he said, he's been thrown out of some of the finest churches in America.
I remember that. There's a part in that movie, Ray, where he takes what we would know as, and I was telling Kevin behind the scenes, I'm a church guy myself, so
okay.
I know what a praise break is. I know a little bit about music, and so there's a scene in there where he plays some chords. It goes dun, 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 and the people are just so disgusted by it. I love it. But he took the secular music and put it over those religious tones, if you will.
Yeah, and it was incredible. Then he also at Pilgrim Baptist Church, which burned down, I believe was rebuilt. He gave us one of the first gospel choirs, and believe it or not, it just seems like it was preordained, because who would think that years later, that when the black church would become the epicenter in black neighborhoods, that the thing that we needed for that release would come out of the same thing that Thomas Dorsey needed when he made the transfer, when he made the move from doing jazz and blues to start doing gospel music. And Lord knows, I believe it was a song that Daryl Coley sang with Donald Lawrence, said, "When Sunday comes, all my burdens will be over." And so you grab that hat, well, the old school, you grab that nice suit and that big hat, and you head to church, and you'd hear that deacon on one knee saying, "Thank God that the walls of my room wasn't the walls of my casket." And all of that ties all the way back again to our history from the great migration of blacks to places like Chicago and Detroit. To this day, gives us such an incredible look and history into what we're doing now. All of that is absolutely vital to what we would call the civil rights movement later on.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, Kevin, you mentioned songs that I know myself and some of our viewers will know, but can you just take us on a journey? Take us through some of the movements, whatever is on your heart or whatever you feel led to do. You mentioned Precious Lord earlier. We even as recent heard Lettucey, the
Yes,
R&B, the soul singer Lettucey performed Precious Lord as Mahalia Jackson in the movie
yes.
Selma. What's on you to share with us today?
Well, what was so awesome is I've been in Birmingham for about 20 years and actually served as minister of music at 16th Street Baptist Church and worked at 670
Wonderful.
Baptist Church when John Porter was pastor. And to sit in church every day and every other person was a civil rights marcher or activist or foot soldier. You just pick up on things like that. And of course, I know we're going to talk about the Alabama Christian Movement for Human Rights choir with Professor Carl Reese. But what I found out is that sometimes we would take the songs from the church and we would rearrange them. So if you heard I woke up this morning with my mind, it was stayed on Jesus. Oh, well, they would change it and say, well, I woke up this morning with my mind, it was stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. And of course, the march from Selma to Montgomery, Bloody Sunday, and all the things that are related to the modern song now, Glory, and all of that. But I remember watching a documentary when we were preparing to do Gospel Anthologies 1 and 2 here on campus. And this lady, she said she couldn't wait to get to Montgomery so she could tell Bull Connor and could tell George Wallace, say, ain't gonna let Bull Connor turn me around. Turn me around, turn me around. And she said, George Wallace wouldn't even look out the curtain to look at her. But she wanted to make sure that there was that sound of that revolution that we're talking about now. And if you really want to get somebody's attention, make some noise. And that's what we learned at church, make some noise, because almost all of our most incredible civil rights leaders were preachers, and
Yes.
we knew how to connect. And those were the things that we got at church. We didn't have a therapist. We didn't have a counselor, except the mighty God counselor and
Yes.
things like that. But that's where we learned the music. That's what I would call music that mobilized. They said if you were little, if you were old, you get that song, and I mean you sing it like Freedom's Highway. When the staple singers used to travel with Martin Luther King, and they say, march on freedom's highway. Oh, I'm gonna march each and every day. And that would get everybody rallying. And of course, that keep your mind off of your feet hurting from walking
Yes.
50 miles. But then when you finally made it, that song that Pete Seeger talks about, which metamorphed from days way before Pete Seeger, when a little lady was, when the unions were being formed and black folks weren't being treated right. That song said, "We shall overcome." And I mean, absolutely something wonderful happened from that
Absolutely.
when you said, "We shall overcome."
Oh yes, we shall overcome. And we still, that is still our cry today. We shall overcome. If you're just joining us, thank you so much for joining us for this conversation with PBS Black Culture Connection and NAACP Connect Sounds of Revolution. Uh, Kevin, you mentioned something that kind of struck a chord with me. You called it music that mobilizes. I love that term because music that mobilizes really speaks to the actual mobilizing people to take an action. That's the first thing it does. But I think it also mobilizes something internally and it stirs something. There's a piercing sound that a lot of these songs have that really mobilize people to want to do something, want to go the extra mile. Like you said, it makes you forget about your feet hurting. It pushed you a little bit further. I talk a little bit about the spiritual connection mixed with that secular and how people who may not know what that is, how that fusion really has played a part in the development of music today.
Awesome. Well, you know, I don't want to get too heavy with music theory, but we've always had a sound. It's a scale. It's called the pentatonic scale. If you were looking at a piano, you look at the white and the black keys. The black keys are something that came from Africa. That do re mi fa sol la ti do. That wasn't our scale. That was not our scale. Well,
Oh, wow.
we started looking, and those when those spirituals first came out, Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, all black keys. When we all get to heaven, all black keys, and that's something that came here to when you heard that music and you heard that sound, that it was absolutely something that got deep down inside of you that made you want to make a difference. In fact, I ran across something. I took the choir. We were in D.C. We went to the Smithsonian, and there is a two-disc set of which one of our choirs from the Alabama Christian Movement for civil rights, for human rights is on there. And it's 43 songs, 43,
Wow.
43 recordings. That is something that will just absolutely blow you away when you hear those songs. Freedom Highway, We Shall Overcome, We Shall Not Be Moved. Mavis Staples was here in Birmingham about a year ago, and she took that old song. Remember, I shall not be moved. I shall not be moved, just like a tree planted by the waters. I shall not be moved. And then with that, it was making a statement. She said, okay, that was okay for him. And I'm going to tell you that while I'm sitting at the counter, I shall not be moved. Public library, I shall not be moved.
Yes.
Swimming pools, I shall not be moved. You have to physically move me because I'm human just like you are. And that's what we learned in church. It wasn't about faith and faith. If I can go to church just for a second, it was about having faith in God. And then you're like, wait, hold on, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Okay, well, it's an unfair fight. You may hit me and beat me inside my head, but at the end of the day, what you've done to the least of them, you've done to me. And isn't it funny that all throughout this history, and I'm not, this is not just seriously, this not a cliche. Whoever was that the history of black folks that there would be a black man in the White House after all that we've been through. And I remember my little teacher in Lincoln Elementary School telling me, if you grow up, you might be president one day. I sure wish I could go back in time and go find her and show her a picture of Barack, President Barack Obama, because now it makes something, because if you didn't move and you stuck to your guns, and if it wasn't for people like Abraham Woods and Dr. A.G. Gadsden, Dr. John Porter, I mean, we were in a world, a heap of trouble. So I thank God for even this opportunity on this show today to talk about this sound, this unmistakable sound that when you heard and saw 700-800 people marching, and you heard, well, if you heard them first, guess what? You're going to see me next.
Absolutely. We're so glad to have you, Kevin. We're so glad to have you. Earlier, you mentioned something about the Alabama Christian movement, and that was officially known as the Alabama Christian Movement for Human Rights, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the movement, the choirs led mass meetings. Again, we have choirs at the forefront, music, essentially, the sound of the revolution leading. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, what was so awesome is that when we did, and I'm not plugging my product, I'm just letting you know that when we did Gospel Anthology 1 and 2, we did research. There is U.S. history, then there's Birmingham history. I want you to know that. And the mass meetings, in fact, that choir is still in existence. They have a scholarship program. They have a big banquet in November to where they are encouraging young folks to continue to pursue higher education. But the mass meetings, and again, the name Professor Carlton Reese, that was the man. That was the man who came from HBCU, Miles College, and he rallied the troops. He wrote those songs. In fact, sometimes while I was listening to his daughter Valencia, she said sometimes while the preacher was talking about civil rights and had the people he would get inspired by what the preacher said. He would start writing a song while the man was preaching, and then would teach him under his breath in the choir stand. Come on, that's what I'm talking about. And I mean, straight from the heart, man. Straight from the heart. And those mass meetings, those were the ones. When you look at those old vintage videos, especially at our Civil Rights Museum here in Birmingham, and you see little kids, it just broke my heart when I didn't believe, I could not believe that Bull Connor would gather up hundreds of minors and then lock them up for 2-3 days. But guess what? While they were locked up, you can still hear that sound. That sound. You know what? I shall not be moved, like a tree planted by the rivers of water. And that spirit, that spirit it still permeates. You know, there's a sense of pride here that you just don't see. And I've lived all over the country. It's something that you just don't get anywhere else. When you see, when you go to Parker High School, when you go to Winona High School, and you see those teachers who came up, or they're the sons and daughters of the civil rights activists, and the sons and daughters who went back to school and got their bachelors and their masters and their doctorates, and now they're the principals. Man, who couldn't put a smile on your face after that? But if it hadn't been for someone who put their own safety, I mean, put their own safety in jeopardy so we could enjoy these rights that we have now. Is everything fine and dandy? No, but is it the way it used to be? Not at all. Looky here. Who's coming from the University of Alabama at Birmingham, who now allows me to have a gospel choir for credit where I teach and our program in African American Studies, where we talk about the history of gospel music. The same things that we're talking about right now is now curriculum in a place where blacks weren't even welcome. So I thank God for the
one and only Kevin Turner. Yes, thank God for the mass meetings, and thank God for people like you leading today's generation. You, Kevin Turner, thank you. Let's go back to talking about Bull Connor locking up the young people in the jails for 2 and 3 days and so on. There's a saying, it's a scripture that says that we have to encourage ourselves using psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs. And out of the civil rights movement were born spiritual songs, and they're hymns of the civil rights movement. What role did that play in the movement as a whole? Well, and if you want to expound and let us hear, you have a beautiful voice, so we'd love to hear you add some other spiritual hymn into it as we look ahead.
One of the first songs that I learned. My mother was a pianist at my dad's church, and that song, "Oh Freedom over me," it says, "And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free." That was round one. But then something happened to where we changed our tune and started saying, "No, I ain't finna go to my grave. You might go to one, but I'm not going to a grave. We're going to make things fair." In fact, what was absolutely awesome when you look at the HBCUs here in Alabama, you want to hear some incredible music. I'm talking about spirituals that you don't hear too many other places. When you go to Tuskegee, William Dawson, when you go to Alabama State, when you go to A&M. Well, I'm gonna tell you what, we're getting that music here at UAB now too as well. It's all in the mix.
Awesome.
It's contralto, Marian Anderson. She used to sing songs like I remember when she sang at the Met, and she was quoted, said they'd never seen that many Negroes. This was back in 1955, attending a classical event, and I'm not patronizing, but that song, "Lift Every Voice and Sing," "Till Every Earth and Heaven Sing," I believe, which the NAACP penned as being the Black National Anthem.
Absolutely.
I think there's no greater song that encompasses the mindset of where we are. Okay, I can't get the job I want. I'm not saying I can't get the loan. And in fact, I don't know if you remember when Birmingham was bombed so much they called it Birmingham. It was that bad. If you In fact, when a lot of the music, I don't know if you know, when the quartet music came out, it was born right here in the Birmingham steel mills and the Birmingham coal mine. It was black folk, Alex Bradford, people like that. But when that song came back up again, lift every voice till earth and heaven, until you get God's attention. So God's gonna have to step in. And if I go preaching on you now, is that give up our dominion and let Him handle it. Take your hand off of it and let Him do it. And that's when you start listening to those songs, till earth and heaven reigns. That's saying something, you know.
Absolutely, it totally is. Yeah.
That's where I live at. You know, that's where I live at. Is that I know praise and worship is awesome, contemporary music. But when you go back to those songs that they used to call congregational songs, I know the Lord will make a way. Oh yes, I mean, that did something. It just does something for me today. You know, I know the Lord will make a way. Oh yes, He will. Yeah. That's
it's a refortification. It's a refortification of faith. Yeah. Absolutely, it's a refortification of your faith, of your belief. It's reassuring because He will essentially take care. And looking throughout the civil rights movement, that's all that our people, and yourself included, that's all you had to look to carry you through. No matter, I mean, some people marched to their death. Some people did not know if they would make it back home. You know, but they believed. They believed that the Lord would carry them through. I love that. I love that. James Weldon Johnson, by the way, everyone, just by way of historical fact. Kevin mentioned that the NAACP dubbed the Lift Every Voice and Sing the Negro National Anthem. That is correct, and we lead all of our official ceremonies with Lift Every Voice and Sing. And James Weldon Johnson is a former NAACP field secretary. So that's just a little historical fact for you too. James Weldon Johnson, the author of Lift Every Voice, the writer, composer of Lift Every Voice and Sing. Had to make sure I was using the right jargon. Kevin, I don't want to offend my fellow artists that are watching us today.
Yes, sir.
Let's talk about, as we wrap up this segment of our conversation, how all of the genres of music kind of work together, detailing the struggle of the civil rights movement today.
Well, you know what, I just love John Legend's song. I mean, that just.
Oh man, isn't it beautiful? Glory.
Yeah.
I mean, and essentially the song is just that. Like, one day when the war is won, it will be ours, and we can really finally shout glory. It's simply said, it's simply put. And if I was a composer myself, I feel that I would probably write something like that. But John and Common get the glory, and they also get the Oscar. So that's me. That's not for me. That's for them.
Well, I'm gonna tell you what's absolutely awesome. You know, when we go back when Marvin Gaye was singing "What's Going On," and James Brown was an incredible performer, but he told us we were black and we're proud.
Yeah.
You know, again, Marian Anderson. We see all the staple singers, Mavis, the staples, pop staples. Everybody came together. Otis Redding. It was no longer about the secular or the religious or the classical or the traditional. It was about, it's no time for us to be divided, because if we continue to be divided, we're going to fall. But as we got together, from Marvin Gaye to John Legend to James Cleveland to Kirk Franklin, is that the message has been absolutely clear. Where there's unity, there's strength, and we have to make a sound that is absolutely distinct, that you will not, there's no wondering, is that what that sound is about. You have to tell people again, I ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. I woke up this morning with the first thing that was on my mind when I got up this morning was freedom. Yeah. You know, and then after all these years, we're still talking about a voting right. Why we need an act? Why we need a bill to vote? How come we just can't vote? You follow what I'm saying? Is there no one else has an act or have to vote? You know, I'm American, and just as the next person is. But it says, okay, if that's how you want to do it, I will be there. Marching, I have my sign, and I will go from prayer to politics. And I will absolutely show you that with the Lord on my side, you don't stand a chance. Not one chance, not at all. That's why I love those songs. Again, like um, the one song that I really love was when Marvin Gaye, when the war was going on, he said, "What's going on?" And that tells you for 1 second, quit quit following everything else that's going on. Stop, look, assess, get your plan together. Whatever you need to do, whether it's the NAACP or First Baptist or so and so, find some way to see what's going on and then make a difference. Absolutely make a difference. And I do want to just put this in there. If you're interested in seeing our story from the perspective of the church, the black church, go on Vimeo and you type in Gospel Anthology, the Church and the Civil Rights Movement. We pay homage, and dance song. It's a documentary put to music. And in fact, I got a shout out from NAACP on Facebook about a year ago. There's a song on there. It's about the 4 little girls that were killed when the 16th Street Baptist Church was bombed. They say, "You don't know what I could have been." And it'll bless you. I mean, literally from front to finish. But you got to have patience to watch the story, because you learn about people like Benita Carter, who was just a teenager and was shot down by Birmingham police officers. And then from that thing, it kicked off. It absolutely kicked off. Mayor Richard Arrington did for mayor, and then he was mayor for 20-something years here. And again, while he was running for mayor, it hadn't been for Abraham Woods. It hadn't been for the Alabama Christian Movement for Human Rights choir that was making that sound that we're celebrating today. That sound that has went from "We Shall Overcome" to "Glory." Yes, sir. You know,
it is a sound. It is totally a sound that was relevant then and is totally relevant now. And I'd like to take this time to take a pivot and make a pivot and talk about another sound that is relevant today, and that is the sound of the Afro Academic, Cultural, Technological, Scientific Olympics. We know it as the NAACP AXO program, of which I have the pleasure of being the national director. And joining us tonight are 2 of our AXO Olympians that have won numerous medals within the AXO program. One of them has an opportunity to win more medals this year and the following year. And I'd like to, without further ado, bring up our first guest, who is Maya Thurkill. Maya is an 11th grader from Chattanooga, Tennessee. Maya is a 2-time AXO gold medalist who is going to perform her original piece addressed to Black America. Maya, how are you this evening?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am so glad you are here to join us. I am well. Go ahead and let's hear Addressed to Black America.
Oprah Winfrey is currently the only Black billionaire in the United States of America. She was raped, abused, and suffered a miscarriage as a child, but she is still one of the most influential women in America. How is that? She works smart, is determined, and most importantly, a good person. Now, to reach this height of success, my generation believes you have to hustle. Hustle hard. You have to sneak, backstab, blackmail, ridicule, and tear down your own people. Much like Tim Robbins' Shawshank Redemption chipped his way out, leaving a giant hole. Just like the one that will be left in humanity once we kill ourselves. Liquor stores, guns, knives, violence. It's like we're putting arsenic in our baby bottles. A health study called the Life Course Perspective shows that racial disparity in infant mortality is caused by stress, socioeconomic status, access to healthcare, exposure to violence, poverty, racism. But to keep our babies alive, all that we have to do is work smarter, be determined, and be good people. Now, while everybody was drunk in love last year, there were record-breaking abortions in the African American community. Because everybody who can have sex is not ready to be a parent. We idolized Beyonce and put her on a pedestal of her own, but her self-titled album was dripping with sex. We force these misconstrued messages into the minds of our children, but are then upset when curiosity kills the cat. Recently, I found a note in my little cousin's backpack, and it read, "Dear so-and-so, I can't wait to have sex with you." 6? The baby was so young he could not even spell sex, but yet it was a burning sensation on his mind. We have to be better role models for our children. We must work smarter, be determined, and be good people. We cannot just put free Pookie on Facebook and expect him to immediately be dropped of all charges. We must stop supporting and discipline from our brothers and sisters. We are kings and queens, created to prosper, but we won't until we are able to change. We will stay enslaved in America's chains until we are sick and tired of being sick and tired, until we're unbought and unbossed, until we have a dream. Until then, bow down, we're still slaves. Yes, we will be put into circumstances that fill us with hatred and embarrassment. But in order to make a change in society, we must whisk through them. Remembering the whips used to strike our people for hundreds of years. Remembering the homes that were sprayed among us while we fought for our rights peacefully. The dreams of our ancestors must not die. The hope for our youth must not die. We must not die. We must work smarter, be determined, and be good people. Thank you.
Beautiful, 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 Maya. Thank you so much for sharing that award-winning, that gold medal earning piece for AXO, Maya. Just by way of background, Maya, what kind of place were you in as you wrote that piece?
Well, I actually started writing my piece for AXO on my plane back from AXO my freshman year because I
Okay.
found out that AXO would be held in Vegas. And I said, no matter what, I have to go to Vegas. And I didn't like what I wrote, so I kept editing and editing and editing. And I just combined a whole lot of issues that I felt were to me. I look at infant mortality and I do a lot of research with that, and I find it crazy that African American babies die more. And it's not something that we're doing health, it's mental health. And so if we could realize that, we could save our lives. And we have to look at influences like Oprah and say, okay, she's been through some things. She's not perfect. She's not someone who had the most privileged life, but she is able to be a great role model. And then we have to also look at role models like Beyonce, and I love Beyonce, and say, if we're letting our children be exposed to adult messages this early, we have to be prepared to explain them. We have to be prepared to look at the pros and the cons. And I just find all of that important. And it wasn't to compete with, it was just, if I can influence somebody with my words, I want them to know this.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I want to share with everyone a little bit about, if you don't mind me sharing this, Maya, about your writing process. Maya, and this is just to encourage anyone who wants to plug in and have a piece of the sound of the revolution today. Maya actually writes her pieces for AXO and other things via her cell phone. She pulls out her cell phone and she goes to typing on that screen, and that's how she comes up with her pieces. So don't be afraid if you feel the urge, follow that urge and write something. You could be the next great composer. You could be the next great orator or tricks. You could be the next AXO medalist. Just make sure you start writing. Speaking of AXO medalists, thank you so much, Maya Thurkill. Let's turn now to Matthew Webb from my hometown of Detroit, Michigan. Matthew, if you can unmute your microphone. Good evening. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I am great. I'm great. Thank you so much for joining us as well tonight, Matthew. Matthew, everyone, is a multi-AXO medal holder. Matthew has 2 gold medals. Matthew has 2 silver medals. Matthew's medaled in the following competitions: oratory. He's also received a silver medal in dramatics, as well as an additional silver medal for music vocal contemporary. Matthew, you're a man of many talents. You are a triple threat. Thank you for taking the time out of your freshman career at Eastern Michigan University to share with us tonight your piece, 16, or Letters to a Son. Let's hear it.
Thanks for having me. Today is called by the Europeans Father's Day. It is a day set aside to honor men who are fathers. To be a father is really to be something or someone very great. To have had a father, a true father, is to have had someone very, very special in your life. And to have missed having a father is to have missed having something very special in your life. When a man becomes a father, he produces life to go beyond the point where his life may end. These lessons and more by Minister Louis Farrakhan led me to think when I have a son. When I have a son, I want him to know that it's young to understand that they're dead wrong. I want him to know that knowledge is by learning. And learning comes by studying comes from the hunger for information. Information that could possibly unlock the question that he must have, like, Dad, why don't you about your past, or Dad, we're learning about Bin Laden, what happened. I want my son's window of opportunity 145 feet long and 132 feet wide. Specifically because I don't want to think that he can do anything in the world, that everything in the world is free. I want him to know that if he ever says, Daddy, I can run fast the speed of light, that he knows that the speed of light travels at exactly 799,792,454 meters per second. That way I can hold a flashlight in my if you can touch the wall before this sports car you want. But he wouldn't take on that challenge because at age he would have already read a book on a chapter 2, section 5, at the speed of light travels back 299,792,450%. Why? Well, because someone would have told him that he would have too young to strong. I want him to know that he's only 365 I'm sorry in his life. That's one sorry for each day of 1 year. That way he's forced to understand that those words come in a high call. That when he uses his I'm sorry, he's only apologizing because he knows that he accepts that he did wrong and wants to turn his wrongs into rights. Right. Every negative feeling down out of his mouth. Because when he sees it, he'll hear it and realize that that sounds so good coming from a 12-year-old boy. Minister Farrakhan said to be upset to growth into a certain kind or quality of knowledge to do something to become fathers. Don't say. I'm never going to tell my son that if you will land among the stars, because I want him to come back to where he started and shoot again until he brings me the whole thing. I'll tell him. Stay focused while you're up there. Most people will only be shooting that high medicinal, but you're going on to different purpose. Know your purpose. Know that there is not a waste that has the word. There's a crowd going left, you go left, just to let them know that you're going right. Why? Because that's your purpose. Yea, though you walk through the valleys, and you shall fear no evil, no God is forever with you, and he knows your purpose. No matter how good you may be, we must always honor because without them, we cannot enjoy the blessings of life. I love you. I want my son to know that the word means 3,000 things. Don't you dare tell that you love her unless you know you have been eternity with her. You will make with her a life You will create a joy and a blessing and a touch and walk this earth. Call it child. Nurture it. Grow it up with dignity, pride, and confidence. Read this size. I will tell him. Read this to your child as he wakes. Read it again and again, and then you will have fallen into that very small category of men with a son who will say, when I grow up, I want to be just like my father. And in the words of Louis Farrakhan, I don't know my father. I only have the faintest picture in my mind of the top of his head, his face. But that does not stop me from paying honor to him, since the seed of that man is the base of my existence. Thank you.
Very, 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 very good, Matthew Webb. That was an awesome and excellent and on-time relative piece. How do you, it's very powerful. So being a college freshman, how have you internalized what you wrote for this AXO piece, and how do you kind of use that to guide you through your daily life?
That the tools that I use to guide me through my daily life is just looking forward to the change. It's continuing to fight for that change that we've been fighting for years. And I think that that's the basis of all my creative part of me, I guess, which is all of me. I've been writing spoken word poetry for a really long time and different speeches and stuff like that, because without speaking, there will be no change, because there can't be change in silence. And I guess that's what kind of motivates me to keep going, to keep fighting, not only for me, but for my son and for my brother, And what also motivates me is keeping in mind that it's not just a black thing. It's not just a black and white thing. We focus so much nowadays on it being, hey, everyone hates blacks, or whites hate blacks, cops against blacks, teachers against blacks, when really it's a society against society issue that we're facing. And so once I take the time to open my mind to that, the bigger picture, it allows me to create more, and it allows me to force more into our society so that we can change more than what we actually see. Because right now we're just blindsided. We have tunnel vision. It's all about us. It's all about the black people. And a great deal of it is. Everyone can admit that. But once we look past that small picture and look at the bigger picture and realize that it's a human issue, then that's something that we're able to change together. Blacks, whites, yellows, reds, everyone.
Thank you so much, Matthew Webb. Ladies and gentlemen, there you have the sound of revolution. From yesterday to today, and essentially of forevermore. I want to thank all of our guests for joining us tonight. Kevin Turner, I want to thank Matthew Webb and Ms. Maya Thurkill for joining us. A real quick round robin, everyone, if you can unmute your microphones. We'll start with you, Matthew. Matthew, how can folks reach you on social media?
I am on Facebook under Matthew Webb. That's MATTHEW and WEBB, B as in boy. And yeah, there you can find everything. I'm always on Facebook. If you want to shoot me a message and have any questions, I'm always there.
Thank you so much, Matthew. Maya? I think Maya's microphone is unmuted. Oh, you're unmuted now, Maya. Go ahead. So I'm not hearing Maya. Maya, if you can type in the chat, just let us know what your Instagram is, and I'll give it to everyone. Kevin, your Twitter for the choir is in your lower thirds, but you can announce how folks can connect with you.
Awesome. Yeah, of course you can catch me on Twitter at the choir, UAB Gospel Choir, and on Facebook, Kevin P. Turner. If there's no P, it's not me, okay?
I like that. If there's no P, it's not Kevin P. Turner. Maya, are you back up? Can we hear you? Testing 1, 2, 3. I see your lips moving, and it says, can you hear me? So if you can mouth maybe your Instagram, and I will try to interpret for the audience.
The Demi Goddess.
We got it. Yes, we heard you. Thank you so much, Maya Thurkill. Thank you, Matthew Webb. Thank you, Kevin Turner. And I must give an honorable mention shout out to 2 of our wonderful AXO leaders that helped get tonight's participants on the Hangout. It's Nishan Bynum and Latoya Henry. Thank you, ladies, so much for helping us to get Matthew and Maya in tonight's conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the movement, Sound of Revolution. Thank you for watching. Make sure that you like us on Facebook and follow on Twitter at NAACP Connect for more interactive content as we wrap up Black History Month. We thank PBS Black Culture Connection for partnering up with us to bring you another Google Hangout on air to celebrate Black History Month. To follow up and get information about all of our information and the topic today, specifically today, make sure you watch the program online, America After Ferguson, on pbs.org. So go to pbs.org and search for America After Ferguson, and you can get more information. Thank you all again for joining us. Remember to go to imnaacp.org to get involved with your local NAACP chapter and begin change in your community. For everyone here at NAACP and NAACP Connect, I'm Larry Brown Jr. We will see you next time. Have a good night. Bye-bye.